Welcome back. Last episode, we built a vector and learned the only two things you're allowed to do with it: scale it by a number and add it to another vector. That sounds almost too simple to build a whole subject on. But watch what happens when we do those two moves freely, with every possible choice of numbers. We take some vectors, scale each by a weight, and add the results. That weighted sum is called a linear combination, and it is the only kind of expression linear algebra cares about. Then we ask one question, across all possible weights: what is the complete set of places we can reach? That set is called the span, and it is the single most important idea in the course. We'll see that the span of one vector is a line, the span of two is usually a plane, and the span of three can fill all of space, or it can collapse. Understanding when and why it collapses leads us straight to linear dependence and independence. Let's build it up. Let's define essential expression precisely. A linear combination of some vectors is what you get by choosing a number for each one, multiplying each vector by its number, and adding everything up. Those numbers are called the weights, or the coefficients. So if I have vectors v1, v2, up to vk, a linear combination is c1 times v1 plus c2 times v2, and so on, where the c's are any scalars I like. Notice that only two operations ever appear: scaling and adding. That's the entire meaning of the word linear: no squaring, no multiplying vectors together, just scale and add. Here's a tiny example. Let u be the vector 1, 0 and v be the vector 0, 1. Take 3 of u plus 2 of v. 3u is the vector 3, 0. 2v is the vector 0, 2. Add them and you get the vector 3, 2. By choosing the weights 3 and 2, the combination reached the point 3, 2. Now hold that thought. What if we let the weights be anything at all? Now the star of the episode. The span of a set of vectors is the collection of every linear combination you can possibly form from them, as the weights range over all real numbers. So instead of picking one set of weights, you take all of them at once and gather up every vector you reach. A few facts fall out immediately. The span always contains the 0 vector, because choosing every weight to be 0 gives the 0 vector. The span is closed under addition and scaling. Combine two things in the span and you stay in the span. That property makes it what we'll later call a subspace. And here's the practical reading. Asking whether a particular vector b lives in the span is exactly the same as asking whether b can be built out of these vectors using scaling and adding. Span is reachability. Think of the vectors as the only directions you're allowed to travel, with unlimited fuel and the freedom to go forward or backward along each. The span is every destination you can reach. The whole question of the episode is, how big is that territory? Start with the smallest interesting case, a single non-zero vector v. Its span is the set of all scalar multiples of ve, every c times v as c runs over all the real numbers. Picture what that traces out. When c is 1, you sit at the tip of v. Make c larger and you slide further out along the same direction. Make c a fraction and you sit part way. Make c negative and you shoot off the other way. Make c 0 and you're at the origin. As c sweeps through every real number, the point c times v sweeps out an entire straight line passing through the origin in the direction of v, so the span of one non-zero vector is a line. There's one degenerate case worth naming. The span of the 0 vector all by itself is just the single point at the origin, because every multiple of 0 is still 0. But for any genuine non-zero vector, one direction scaled every which way gives you a line. That's our first piece of reachable territory. Now add a second vector. Take u and v and form all combinations a times u plus b times v, with a and b ranging over everything. Generically, this sweeps out a whole plane through the origin, the flat sheet containing both arrows. With two genuine directions and two independent dials, you can reach any point on that sheet. But, and this is the crucial subtlety, it only works if u and v point in genuinely different directions. Suppose instead that v is just a scalar multiple of u, say v equals k times u. They're parallel, they lie on the same line. Watch the algebra collapse. The combination a times u plus b times v becomes a times u plus b times k times u, and since both terms are multiples of u, that's just the quantity a plus bk, all times u. It's a single multiple of u, so the span is back to a line. The second vector added nothing the first didn't already give us. That word, nothing new, is the whole story of dependence, and it's where we head next. Let's name the phenomenon precisely. A set of vectors is called linearly dependent if at least one of them can be written as a linear combination of the others. That vector is redundant. It points in a direction the others already cover, so it adds nothing to the span. If no vector is redundant, the set is linearly independent, and every single vector contributes a genuinely new direction. Now, checking each vector against all the others sounds tedious, so there's a beautifully clean test. Set a linear combination of all the vectors equal to the 0 vector, and ask how you can make that happen. There's always one boring way: set every weight to 0. The question is whether that's the only way. If the only way to combine the vectors into 0 is to weight them all by 0, the set is independent. But if there's some other way, some non-trivial choice of weights, not all 0, that still sums to 0, then the vectors are dependent, and that very equation shows you how to write one of them in terms of the rest. Trivial solution only means independent. A non-trivial solution means dependent. Here's a structural fact that makes span so important. Every span isn't just some random set of points, it's always a special kind of set called a subspace. A subspace is a collection of vectors that, first, contains the 0 vector, second, is closed under addition, meaning if you add any 2 vectors in it, you stay inside, and third, is closed under scaling, meaning any scalar multiple of a vector in it is also inside. Why does a span automatically satisfy all 3? Because a sum of 2 linear combinations is just another linear combination, and a scalar times a linear combination is again a linear combination. There's simply no way to escape the span by adding or scaling. That's exactly what closure means. Geometrically, the subspaces of Rn are the perfectly flat sheets that pass through the origin, a single point, a line, a plane, higher flat sheets, all the way up to the entire space. And here's a subtlety worth remembering. A line that misses the origin is not a subspace, because it doesn't contain the 0 vector. Spans always go through the origin. So when does a set of vectors fill an entire space? Here's the key fact. To span all of Rn, you need at least n vectors, and they have to supply n genuinely independent directions. Let's read it off in 3 dimensions. 0 vectors, or only the 0 vector, span just a point. 1 non-zero vector spans a line. 2 independent vectors span a plane. And 3 independent vectors finally span all of R3. Every point in space is reachable. Each new independent vector lifts the span into 1 more dimension. Now, a subtle but important point, you can absolutely have more than n vectors and still span Rn. 4 vectors can span R3. But if you have 4 vectors in 3 dimensions, they must be dependent. At least one is redundant, expressible from the others. There simply isn't room for 4 independent directions in 3-dimensional space. The quantity that really matters is the number of independent directions in the set. That number is called the dimension of the span, and it tells you exactly whether you've got a point, a line, a plane, or the whole space. Here are the 2 basic spans side by side. In the top panel, a single arrow v leaves the origin, and the navy line running through it both ways is its span. Every scalar multiple of v, the ghosted copies at half v, 2v, and negative v all sitting neatly on that one line. 1 vector, 1 line. In the bottom panel, 2 arrows u and v leave the origin pointing in genuinely different directions. Now their combinations don't stay on a line. They fill the entire translucent gold sheet passing through the origin and containing both arrows. That's the plane they span. The little shaded parallelogram inside it reminds you how any point gets reached. Scale u some amount, scale v some amount, add them tip to tail, and you land somewhere on the sheet. The jump from the top picture to the bottom, from a line to a plane, is exactly 1 new independent direction. Add a 3rd independent arrow poking out of the plane, and the span would swell to fill all of space. This figure shows the difference between independence and dependence in the cleanest possible way. On the left, 2 vectors u and v point in clearly different directions. Because neither is a multiple of the other, their combinations fill the entire plane. The whole grid is tinted, labeled span equals all of R2. 2 independent directions, full plane. On the right, the setup looks similar, but now the second vector, w, is exactly 2 times u. It lies right on top of the line through u. It's parallel, so no matter how you weight u and w, you never leave that single line. The span has collapsed from the whole plane down to a 1-dimensional line, and the tinted region shrinks to match. The vector w is redundant. It equals 2u, a combination of what we already had. That contrast, full plane versus collapsed line, is the entire visual meaning of independence versus dependence. Independence means each arrow buys you a new dimension. Dependence means somebody's just repeating directions already covered. Let's make the span concrete with a computation. Question, is the vector 7 for a linear combination of u equals 1, 1 and v equals 3, 1? In other words, does b live in their span? To find out, we look for weights a and c so that a times u plus c times b equals b. Writing that out component-wise gives 2 equations. The first components, a plus 3c equals 7. The second components, a plus c equals 4. This is just a little system of equations. Subtract the second from the first, the a's cancel, and 2c equals 3, so c is 3 halves. Plug back into a plus c equals 4, a equals 4 minus 3 halves, which is 5 halves. Let's check. 5 halves times 1, 1 is 5 halves, 5 halves. 3 halves times 3, 1 is 9 halves, 3 halves. Add them, 5 halves plus 9 halves is 14 halves, which is 7. 5 halves plus 3 halves is 8 halves, which is 4. We get 7, 4 exactly. So yes, B is in the span. And because U and V are independent and already fill all of R2, the weights are unique. Every vector in the plane has exactly one recipe. Second example, testing for dependence. Are the three vectors U equals 1, 2, 3, V equals 2, 4, 6, and W equals 0, 1, 0 independent? Before grinding through any system, look for an obvious relationship. Notice that V is exactly 2 times U. Double every component of 1, 2, 3, and you get 2, 4, 6. That instantly gives us a non-trivial combination summing to 0, 2 times U, plus -1 times V, plus 0 times W equals the 0 vector. The weights 2, -1, 0 are not all 0, yet the combination is 0. By our test, that makes the set linearly dependent. The culprit is V, it's redundant, just a scaled copy of U, contributing no new direction. Now here's a useful follow-up. If we throw V away, are the survivors U and W independent? W is the vector 0, 1, 0, and U has a non-zero third component while W has a 0 third component, so W can't possibly be a multiple of U. They point in different directions. So U and W are independent, and together they span a plane inside R3, not the whole space, just a two-dimensional slice of it. Last example, and it ties everything together, do the three standard basis vectors span R3? Those are E1 equals 1, 0, 0, E2 equals 0, 1, 0, and E3 equals 0, 0, 1. Take any target vector you like, call it x, y, z. Can we build it? Watch, x times E1 is x, 0, 0, y times E2 is 0, y 0, z times E3 is 0, 0, 0, 0. Add those three and you get exactly x, y, z. Every vector in space is reached, and the weights are just its own components handed right back to you. So yes, they span all of R3. Are they also independent? Set x e1 plus y e2 plus z e3 equal to the 0 vector. That sum is the vector x, y, z, and for it to be 0, we need x, y, and z all 0. Only the trivial combination works, so the set is independent. A set that is both independent and spanning has a special name, a basis. The standard basis is the cleanest example there is, and bases are the headline act waiting for us a few episodes down the line. A little history before we recap. The ideas in this episode are essentially the invention of Hermann Grassmann in his 1844 book. He was the first to treat linear combinations and independence in any number of dimensions, and his word for the reachable extent of a set of vectors, Ausdehnung, German for extension, is very close to what we now call span. As we mentioned last time, his work was so abstract for its era that it sat largely unread for decades. Through the middle of the 1800s, Cauchy, Cayley, and Sylvester developed determinants and matrices, which gave mathematicians concrete machinery for detecting whether a set of vectors is dependent, tools we'll pick up later in this course. Then, in 1888, Giuseppe Peano laid down the axioms of a vector space, and the notion of dimension, defined as the size of an independent spanning set, finally became fully precise. In the 20th century, span, independence, and basis grew into the common language of functional analysis, coding theory, and now machine learning. Let's recap. A linear combination of vectors is a weighted sum. Scale each vector by a number and add the results. Scaling and adding are the only operations linear algebra allows, which is exactly what makes it linear. The span of a set of vectors is the collection of all of those combinations, the entire region the vectors can reach. It always contains the 0 vector. Geometrically, one non-zero vector spans a line, 2 independent vectors span a plane, and n independent vectors span all of Rn. A set is linearly dependent when one of its vectors is redundant, expressible from the others, which shows up as a non-trivial combination equal to the 0 vector. A set is linearly independent when no vector is redundant, so the only way to combine them into 0 is to weight them all by 0. Then each vector buys you a brand new direction. And the number of independent directions in a span is its dimension. Point, line, plane, space. Next episode, we hand vectors a ruler and a protractor, the dot product, which measures length, angle, perpendicularity, and projection, all from a single sum. Today, we turn two simple moves into the central idea of linear algebra. A linear combination of some vectors is what you get by scaling each one by a number and adding the results, like 2 times u plus 3 times v minus 1 times w. The span of a set of vectors is the collection of every linear combination you can possibly form, the entire region those vectors can reach. The span of a single non-zero vector is a line through the origin. The span of two vectors is a plane through the origin, unless the two vectors are parallel, in which case the second one is redundant and the span is just a line. That redundancy has a name, linear dependence. A set is linearly dependent when at least one vector can be written as a combination of the others, so it adds nothing new. A set is linearly independent when none of them is redundant and every vector genuinely opens up a new direction. Geometrically, independent vectors each push the span into a fresh dimension. One vector gives a line, 2 independent vectors give a plane, 3 independent vectors fill all of 3-dimensional space. The number of independent directions is the true dimension of the span. Next episode, we give vectors a way to measure each other, the dot product, and out of one little sum, we'll pull length, angle, perpendicularity, and projection. If you got something out of this, please like the video, drop a comment with what clicked for you or what didn't, and subscribe for more educational videos. Every like, comment, and share helps push this work to more learners, which is what this channel is really about. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.